and this information may help you along your journey. Understand that child is a definition for chattel paperwork in the Admiralty administrative side of the public. So chattel is nothing more than a security. A child is nothing more than chattel paperwork that can be bought or sold. Okay? Nothing the administrative side can do can affect the people. All right? They don't have dominion over you. They didn't create you. They can't give you orders. They can't compel you to do what you don't want to do. That would be slavery. That would violate the Treaty of Ghent. It would also violate the palpables, which were issued by the Pope, as you guys know, or maybe you're not familiar with. The Pope is the only man in the world that can create a law on a whim. It requires no legislation. It becomes effective as soon as they sign it, and it instantaneously becomes law. All right. In order to understand why that is, you have to go all the way back to the Unum Sanctum, the Trilogy of Palpables, the crown transferring from England to Spain back to London. You have to understand the history of how that came to be about. But essentially, the Catholic diocese, the Roman Vatican, is not a saint by any way, shape, or form of the means, and they are all military operations. You don't believe me? They have the Vicar General, just like your police officers go by chief, commander, lieutenant. It's all a military operation, all right? And the sooner you learn that, the better off you will be. Okay, so I'm giving you the proper tools and tactics to utilize to ascend of the mind to help your fellow brothers and sisters in your community come up out of her like the good Lord has instructed us. Thank you, honey. I appreciate that. I need really hot coffee, so my voice isn't going to last very long. With that said, my extensive studies have taken me into ecclesiastical law, canon law, Roman civil law, law of merchants. It's taken me into treaties and a number of other forms of what people perceive to be law. And if you subject yourself to that, who am I to say otherwise? Life is what you make of it, and you have free will. I'm not here to change your will. Not even the Heavenly Father will attempt to change your will. Your will is yours. He gave it to you for a reason, and you can choose the path that best suits you in this life. I will point this out to you. 1 Timothy section 9 lays it all out, who the law of the Pharisees, Roman civil law, was made for. All right? And if you fall into that category, then perhaps you should adhere to the law created by man if you have or lack a moral compass and do not comprehend the difference between wrong and right because it was not written on your heart. I won't say that you're a son of Satan or anything like that, but if you don't have a good moral fiber and a moral compass, then the law of man was definitely written for you. It doesn't mean that you can't come up out of her eventually when you ascend of the mind, all right? Not all of us grow or have the same lifestyle or trajectory or path. Some of us find it later in life. I've seen men that are 50 years old that are still 16-year-old boys for all intents and purposes, mentally, as far as that's concerned, and spiritually. I've also seen 12-year-old kids that are very enlightened and have taught me things that I could have never imagined, and again, they're 12. So take that for what it's worth, all right? So tonight we're going to bust into CPS. They're engaged in human trafficking, the violation of Executive Order 13818, 13903, okay, human trafficking. That's under military executive order by the commander-in-chief, all right, in a military operation. On the common law side of things, thou shalt not take property that does not belong to them. That includes your offspring, okay? So let's move forward here. We're going to talk about the authentication of a title, which is in commercial law, okay? And we find that in the UCC, UCC 9-102 to be specific. If you're following along on a different device and you have access to a computer, you can go ahead and look up UCC 9102 and then look up the definition for authentication. Authentication means to adopt a record, all right? You can't adopt that record if that record has not been abandoned. Well, it just so happens that you can adopt the birth certificate record, all right? You did not create that record, however, that record has been abandoned. Nobody told you how to do a proper birth return. We didn't follow the king and queens and what their heirs do prior to their offspring being born, which is a announcement to the public and the people, letting everybody know that we're bringing offspring in. Instead, due to our negligence and lack of knowledge, we allow the hospital administrator to announce the birth of an offspring, okay? And we don't actually claim our own. So the infant is abandoned at the hospital. The child is, of course, chattel paper to be bought and sold at will, and then the baby goes home with mom. Now, we can do the Holy Trinity, if you like, to look at it in that way, the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. We can join all those back together into one, and we can claim those, all right? Men make claims, corporations file complaints. Be a man, make a claim your offspring. You can do that in the paper by giving public announcement for 4 consecutive weeks, getting an authentication of publication, recording it in your local county, and letting them know, hey, I have offspring, I sired offspring, I planted the seed, and a 9-month gestation period occurred where the woman was the trustee, and upon full gestation, the security was birthed and given properly back to me upon maturity, all right? So that offspring is yours. Anyway, this is the authentication process for you and your kid's birth certificate, all right, and offspring's birth certificate, because kids is what goats have, all right? To truly own something, you must have the title in your name and have it authenticated and have it recorded on the public record, all right? Everything's about a record. Your private record supersedes any record they, being the government or the hospital or administrators or trustees, creates. Why? You're the only one that can testify with firsthand knowledge to the veracity, under the pains and penalties of perjury, of that record being authentic. You can verify that record, ladies and gentlemen, okay? Which you do by taking said title to the county recorder's office or mailing it to them and telling them you would like said title and deed, which is real private property, registered by have them record it, all right? Now, you can keep your private record on the private side if you like. You can record it in the public if you like. I tend to record a record at the Register of Deeds versus filing it or whatever, and I record on demand. There is no issue here. If you're going to get flack for recording it online, all you have to simply do is attach or allonge an affidavit to it under the pains and penalties of perjury, and make sure that it's a garrote that is utilized with the notary. And yes, Keith, I'm a little under the weather, my brother, but thank you for caring about my spell of illness. One maximum of law is that anything that can be proven must be proven, all right? But there are things that are self-evident, okay? If you do have your and your offspring's title authenticated, which would be the birth certificate, okay, it's evidence of an event, okay? It's also a bill of lading, it's a warehouse certificate, it's evidence of a very, very large debt due and owing to you and your family, okay? And remember, a small debt creates a debtor, a large debt creates an enemy. It's no wonder they consider us enemies of the United States, okay? If you do not have your and your offspring's title authenticated, you have not proven the highest degree possible that you do, in fact, own that title. Now, a while back, Mr. Anonymous told me, Derek, you spend a lot of time arguing around title and not arguing through title. If you argue through title, you will find that you won't meet much resistance. It took me a long time to understand what he was telling me, okay? I didn't have the proper documentation in place, and what I was doing was arguing around title, trying to avoid it instead of arguing through it, saying, Here's my proof of claim. Where the fuck is yours? All right? Until you do so, the state claims ownership of your title and your kid's title, which allows them to put you in jail or take your kids away, etc. When you own the title by placing an authenticated copy with a few other documents, go over more below, on the public record by having them recorded at the county recorder's office, it takes you and your offspring out of the federal jurisdiction. The federal jurisdiction, ladies and gentlemen, I want to be very, very clear about this, is the federal enclaves. We find this in Title 28, 3002-15A. It also is explained in Title 26, the jurisdiction thereof for taxation. And it always purports and ties back to you, which is under Title 22 CFR, which is found in the District of Columbia. Understand this, the Zone Improvement Project number is copywritten and trademarked by the DOD, the U.S. military, Department of Defense, and by using it, you are engaging in infringement on copywritten, trademarked property. Okay, nobody ever taught you that in school. It's kind of a way of entrapment, really. But the lot, block, parcel ID number, zone improvement project number, and address all belong to different entities. Okay, those entities sometimes are the municipality, sometimes it's the state, other times it is the DOD. Be very mindful of that. And to prove my point, if you read in to Title 15, 1601 through 1693, you will clearly see it outlined where they make the distinction between an abode and an address, a resident and a man or woman, okay? A natural person, if you will. I don't want you to get confused in the legalese. The natural person is the highest capacity that one can operate through in commerce, okay? It's a legal thing. So, we're talking about federal jurisdiction. We're talking about the use of the address, which means that you're operating either a registered or unregistered corporation at a certain location, and by doing so, you fall subject to the federal jurisdiction, which is under Title 28, 3002-15A, a federal corporation, which gives the legislator the ability to pass down edicts and all this other shit to you because you are a volunteer employee unbeknownst to you, which means you go on the do not detain list, and so does your kids, your offspring, and the state knows you have registered your title, which is your authenticated birth certificate, and that title is your citizenship. Let's talk about citizenship for a minute. When we distinguish the difference between public and private, we are man, okay? In the public, we have these things called persons. And I have many juristic persons, all right? I have one from when my folks first enrolled me into grade school, right? That juristic person utilized my mother utilized an application that manifested a new juristic person that paid from the estate, from that juristic person, the Social Security number, combined with the birth certificate estate number, created a new juristic person into the economy. And that's why the Fourth Amendment is so important. You have the right to be secure in papers, houses, persons, and effects, all right? So when you understand that by filling out applications, you're actually creating new juristic persons, okay? The birth certificate, again, is just chattel. It's nothing more than a security, a bill of lading, a vessel for transporting or passing title through or on. It is a person for all intents and purposes that you get to engage in commerce with, because a man cannot touch commerce naked. It does not work that way, okay? Which means you get to go on the do not detain list. Whether or not the do not detain list is valid, I've seen some things that lead me to believe that it is true, correct, and accurate. Nevertheless, if you operate as a man, you're already on the do not touch list. They don't like to be touched where it feels funny, and a man can most certainly touch public officials where they don't like to be touched, okay? So, food for thought. And so does your kids, and the state knows you have registered your title, which is your authenticated birth certificate, and the title is your citizenship and your kid's citizenship, okay? It's not actually pertaining to you, it's pertaining to the person for which you have control over, okay? The person's citizenship changes, all right? It is your piece on the game board of life that they granted to you. Now, why did they have to grant this game piece to you? When we start to look at the Township Maternity Act of 1921, we look at the Federal Reserve Banking Act of 1913, the Trading with the Enemy Act, we start to realize what the Reconstruction Act of 1871 was all about. When we comprehend the definition of constitutor, we understand that that's to roll debt from one entity to another or to pay a debt. For all intents and purposes, the first charter was rendered bankrupt, okay? So they had to roll it over to a new entity in 1871. And in doing so, they had to provide a remedy to we the people, because the republic still exists. There's a democracy, and then there's a republic. Just a little bit of history. Every democracy throughout the tolling of time has always failed miserably. It's always went down in a ball of flaming, heaping pile of shit. And once it collapses, what happens is an oligarchy where the few tried to lord over the many, and they end up getting their throats slit and beheaded for human trafficking and fucking over the people of the world. All right, so this is a global issue, not so much just a centralized issue in the Republic of the United States of America. It's important to understand that there are two different entities at work here, both of them running simultaneously, and you have the option of choosing which one you're going to operate in. And when you operate in the opposing side, which would be commerce versus the private side, you actually have the benefit of being able to put your foot down and tell them to fuck off, all right? What people call a normal citizen are actually legal fictions, and as a legal fiction, which is a person, they have no claim to human rights or the Constitution. Okay, the Constitution is really a corporate construct. It's a corporate charter. Even when we look back in history and we're looking at, per se, the oh goodness, I'm going to draw a blank here. Forgive me, I've been a little under the weather, so my brain's not quite functioning at the normal capacity. But every country has its own corporate charter, okay? And every country actually has its own republic. There's a Republic of China, there's a Republic of Russia, there was the Republic of the USSR, there's the Republic of Bosnia, for fuck's sake, okay? So the Constitution is a corporate charter, and then, of course, there's the Republic, which is the people. Shocking, I know, but once you register your title, once you register your title, this is so piss poorly written. You, the living man, the real man, citizen with claim to human rights and the Constitution, but you can't have that until you register that title, that citizenship, that authenticated birth certificate, that game piece, all right? The game piece that we're talking about here, ladies and gentlemen, is the person. And getting your hands on it and being able to lay claim to it and utilizing that person, because it's really just a game of fucking Monopoly, all right? So when you understand and you can distinguish the difference between your person and you as a man, okay, then you can understand how you can utilize these pieces to benefit you. When somebody's making a claim against your estate, your person, and the Fourth Amendment is very clear that you have a right to be securing your houses, papers, persons, and effects, then you get to say by what authority are you utilizing this private intellectual property and information. Ladies and gentlemen, what I'm trying to point out to you is so nicely and eloquently pointed out right here. Okay, when we're starting to talk about identity theft, the determination of finance charges is what we go into here, but let me see if I have identity theft on here as well. Let me see. Enforcement agencies. Oh, where are you at? Control F. Let's go. Identity. It's not going to let me do it. That's why I'm on the wrong one. That's all mortgages and shit. Definition, creditor, term, card holder. Hold on. Identity theft's going to be in here somewhere. Dwelling, means a residential structure or mobile home which contains one of the 4 family housing units. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm in the wrong section of the FDIC. Anyway, in the FDIC, it talks about identity theft. And it's a really nice explanation of what constitutes identity theft. All right. So in CPS, when they are using your private intellectual property, your person, without your written consent, they're engaged in identity theft. This includes your fingerprints, your photographs, your butthole prints, your thumbprints, you name it. All right. How do I claim supreme title of my deed? Well, let's get into that. So, it's your game piece, all right? The authentication, if you look at the UCC 9-102, authentication is to adopt a record, all right? If you adopt the record, you can prove that you have superior interest in said title, and now you can argue through title. Okay, what I mean by that is you're going to ask them where they got the power of attorney to use said entity when you hold perfected title in your hand, okay? You must realize you and your offspring are not citizens, but rather you and your offspring have a citizenship. That's the person you control. That's the game piece on the board, which you can use or not whenever you want, but until you claim it by putting it on the public record, the state thinks they still own it as their private property. And it's not the fact that they still own it, ladies and gentlemen. They are claiming that they are the trustee and they have the ability to control it for the benefit of the beneficiary who is unknown, unnamed at this point in time, okay? So, you see, the only power the state has is the power you consent to giving it. If you don't want the state to have that power over you, then all you have to do is claim it. Get the title authenticated and put it on the public record, then you can enter the recording number for your files, which the county recorder's office will give you, and enter the recording number into the CPS case to show them that your kids are, or your offspring are, your private property, and by God, they better give you back your private property, because now if they don't, you can sue their asses off for stealing your private property, engaging in identity theft, ladies and gentlemen, okay? You're now holding title. Possession is 9/10 of the law. What nobody ever really talks about is that other pesky 10th, and how important that other pesky 10th really is. And that other pesky 10th, ladies and gentlemen, is fucking title. All right? What evidence do we have of the title? Well, we have now authenticated and adopted that record. And they are using that private intellectual record, that property that we have now authenticated and adopted without our written motherfucking consent. They don't have power of attorney to utilize said private intellectual property that we have adopted and that the United States government has given full faith and credit to, both on the state and the federal level. All right? You can prove it's your property, and I hate using private property because an adjective before the noun always diminishes the noun, and the real issue before us is property, okay? Private property diminishes property. In the Constitution, you see you have the right of property, not private property, but property. So we want to use the same language and lingo that's in the charter, all right? With your recording number, which will show the authenticated BC, and the state will never challenge that. Why? Because it's legal evidence of the fucking law. The state will never show a title to your offspring and claim they are their property, because that would be slavery. So another question you can ask is, does the state register people as property? Yes or no? That's a simple question for what we call interrogatories during discovery. Yes or no? Does the state register people as property? Yes or no? They will never say yes, because that would violate the Treaty of Ghent. It would go against the palpables in the 1500s by the Roman Curia, the Roman Church, okay? Which, mind you, there is no separation between church and state, because all the magistrates, all the judges in every state constitution are bound by canon laws, all right? So there is no fucking separation between church and state, ladies and gentlemen. That's a fucking fallacy, all right? And if there was a separation between church and state, the damn magistrates, alleged judges, wouldn't be using canon law. All right? It will never happen. It's game over for this at this point. They have no choice but to give you back your private property. And again, we want to stick away from private because private is an adjective which diminishes the actual noun in the subject matter, which is the property. How do we prove that your offspring is property? Well, ladies and gentlemen, they have your DNA. And your DNA is particular to you and is your property, all right? More so than anything, it's the property of the Heavenly Father bestowed upon you, put in a trust relationship to help you grow mentally, spiritually, and physically, to teach you patience, to teach you how to deal with sorrow, happiness, and all these other floods of emotions. Maybe to lead by example when prior to having your offspring, you didn't lead the best life, but after you had that gracious gift from the Heavenly Father bestowed upon you, you had a change of heart because you didn't want your offspring to go through the same trials and tribulations you once went through. All right, so that property that's bestowed upon you is bestowed upon you in trust by the Heavenly Father to make sure that you have an opportunity, perhaps maybe to redeem yourself or to look at life in a different way, all right? And these people have no right to come in and take your property, absent a victim, absent a crime, alleging and purporting that somehow they know what's best for you and your family, all right? Government has never done anything that they first didn't have to rob Peter to pay motherfucking Paul. They're the largest human traffickers in the fucking world, all right? So, you should authenticate all of your titles to anything you want to own, okay? Ownership comes with liability. That's why we manifest trust into existence, and then we pass title into the trust, and then we don't own anything. We just control it all. And then when we die, it doesn't go into probate where the lying, looting, pandering fucking vultures known as lawyers can fucking fleece the estate, right? It never goes into probate if it's in trust. Simply the new trustee steps forward, which may be your daughter, your grandmother, your dad, your cousin, your auntie, your whatever it is, steps up as trustee, and there's no inheritance tax, ladies and gentlemen. This is how the wealthy continue to amass wealth throughout generations and leave their heirs and assigns, continuing to live a wonderful lifestyle. And you yourself have this ability as well. House, cars, boats, pets, kids, certificates of title, birth certificate, and certificate of live birth. Now, when we're going to talk about automobiles, ladies and gentlemen, automobiles come with a manufacturer's certificate of origin. If you did not receive that, they cheated you at the dealership, all right? They are in breach of contract, just like the title insurance company is in breach of contract when they told you that your lot block, parcel ID number, zone improvement project number, real estate and property was free from levy and without any financial constraint on it. They fucking lied. All right, there's a super top secret lien mortgage on every real estate, property, house, car, boat, truck, duck. Don't give a fuck what it is. There's a mortgage on it, all right? And a mortgage means that somebody else has a superior interest in said property, which means that there's no fucking way in hell it was free and clear, and that's why you pay taxes. If you do not do this, then you are not the true owner. You are instead more along the lines of a caretaker for a time, a tenant, if you will, okay? With state retaining the title of true ownership, they remain the title owners to everything until you have the title double authenticated to become the true owner and holder in due course, all right? Step 1, get a certified copy of the title you want to authenticate, so you're going to get a hold of Vital Check or Vital Records. Get the birth certificate, authenticate it on the state and federal level, all right? You're also going to do a birth announcement in the paper. If financial wherewithal becomes an issue and you don't have the funds to publish it for consecutive weeks in the paper, you can utilize a process where you have 2 or more witnesses witness you, post publicly in the post office, the register of deeds office, the sheriff's office. There's always a cork board in these public buildings for this purpose that I'm going to mention to you. If you're less than fortunate enough to have Federal Reserve notes or whatever it takes to publish in the paper, you can go ahead and publish this in the post office for 31 days or 61 days and claim it that way. giving your public announcement and then recording it on public record, okay? It must be a certified copy only. Do not get just a copy. You need a certified copy from Vital Records. If this is your certificate of live birth certificate, which is a certificate of title, bill of lading, a warehouse receipt, if you will, you can get a certified copy of this from your Vital Records office. You will have to Google this to see if your city or town has a local Vital Records office. I know in Phoenix, Arizona, they're all over the fucking place, all right? If they don't, then you can order a certified copy from http://www.vitalcheck.com. I've used them in the past. They work. And you can also talk to your county recorder's office to see if they have any abstract, write this down, abstract birth filing record, okay? Whether it was left at the hospital or given to the county, go look for the abstract filing of birth. This is something that nobody really talks about. I know of it only because I read a fuck ton, but it does exist, all right? And if you get told no at the county level, maybe go over to the hospital and ask them for the abstract filing of the birth, which has all of the pertinent information as to the birthing of your offspring, okay? Make sure he has his discipline collar on, please. Thank you very much. And he gets a beep before he gets zapped, all right? We whack him before we pack him. All right. Step 2, the first authentication you will need to get is at the state level, all right? And so you'll do that at the Secretary of State's office where they're going to authenticate. And ladies and gentlemen, all they're authenticating, okay, let me be very clear about this, is signatures. They're not authenticating the information on the document. Okay, that's for you to go through and verify and make sure that everything's correct and make sure the names are spelled properly and all that stuff. If there needs to be an amendment made prior to you authenticating, then I suggest you make that amendment properly and timely before you authenticate. You don't want to authenticate a record that is not true, correct, and accurate. This is usually done at the state capitol in the Secretary of State's office. Do a Google search to find the website for your state Secretary of State. If you live close by, you can drive to their office to request an authentication for your title. If this is for your certificate of live birth certificate, this must be done in or mailed to the state that you were born in. Okay, so for example, if you're in Indiana, you were born in Ohio, you can't go to the Indiana Secretary of State. They will not authenticate it. You must go back to Ohio, okay, and you can do it via the mail. If you do not live close by, you can mail your certificate of title, certified mail. Always do things certified mail or registered mail. Registered mail is going to be chain of title, approved chain of custody, and it's also insurable. Certified mail is you're going to be using the 3811 green return receipt with a 3800 mail form to keep track of everything, and you're going to make sure that anybody that receives that certified mail signs for it, okay? And that's your evidence that they received it and that they have precious cargo that you have mailed to them. And include a prepaid big envelope for return delivery, so once your title has been authenticated, they can send it back to you. Otherwise, you won't get your title back. You must include a prepaid envelope. This is very important. It's a step that many people miss, a prepaid envelope. And I would also advise that one, make an affidavit as to your purpose for authenticating such document, and you may refer to UCC 9102 and look up authentication. The definition is to adopt said record. I'm here to adopt said record. This is my purpose and point for doing so. I need this authenticated. Thank you very much for your time. I seek to authenticate this for use outside of this country. Remember, the Republic is not the same. The United States and the U.S. are not the same as the United States of America. They are different, okay? And you may get some blowback if you say, I want to authenticate this for the United States of America. The ignorant masses that work at the Secretary of State's office may say, you're in the United States of America. No. All right, there's a difference between state of Nebraska and Nebraska, the Republic. They're very distinguished, they're very defined, and they are different, okay? So I have friends that have authenticated their birth certificates for the United States of America, and they actually have authentications, not apostilles, which is super fucking badass, all right? They didn't go to Taiwan. They didn't go to fucking Puerto Vallarta or Canada. They said, look, I want this authenticated for the United States of America, the Republic. It's different. It's outside the alleged country known as the United States, which by definition is a corporate fucking ration, all right? Check your Secretary of State SOS website to see if they require a cover letter or request for authentication form, okay? So you're going to want to look. Some of them have authentication forms that you can fill out that make it just super easy for the mindless fucking nummies behind the counter that are really civil servants that don't have an oath of office, ladies and gentlemen, so you can't be threatening these people saying, you do what I say or you're violating your oath. Some of these people are just nothing more than civil fucking servants, okay? Or civil employees, excuse me. They're civilian employees. They don't actually fill an office, okay? If so, it will be provided on their website. Just print it out, fill it out, and paperclip it to your title. If they do not require a cover letter or provide a request form, you must create your own to explain why you are requesting the authentication. Again, I revert back to UCC 9102. Authentication means to adopt a record, okay? To ensure you get the Great Seal authenticated and not the lesser apostille, you must check the box for or state that this authentication request is for travel purposes to a non-Hague Convention member country. For example, Taiwan is a non-Hague country. Again, the United States of America is not the same as United States or U.S., okay? If you have any questions on your state authentication process, you can have any question answered simply by going to the Secretary of State's website or calling their office. Once you get your authentication back in the mail or hand back to you, if you went down there to their office in person, you are now ready for step 3. On step 3, note there is a small fee for authentication, but usually only about $5 to $10, so make sure you send a money order for the correct amount, which you can find out on your Secretary of State's website or calling them. It's important to get this correct, ladies and gentlemen. I once sent out, I was helping a number of people do this. I sent out the wrong amount for the money orders, and they returned every last one of them back. It was a painstaking, time-consuming son of a bitch, and it pissed me off. Make sure that you call them, contact them, and find out exactly what the fucking fee is. And it doesn't hurt to authenticate multiple certificates, okay? So get 5 for Johnny, get 5 for Susie, get 5 for yourself, and send them all out at the same time, all right? Use different envelopes for Susie, Johnny, and yourself. That way people don't get confused about what the fuck you're really doing. And don't forget to use a prepaid self-stamped envelope, pre-addressed, to get your documentation sent back to you. Do not count on them to create an envelope to send your documents back to you if you opt to mail this stuff in, okay? Step 3. Now you're ready for your second authentication, which will be done at the federal level. This is where you're going to see that you're going to get your full faith and credit of the United States issued on said instrument, which makes that instrument legal evidence that is accepted in all courts, state, county, federal, district, don't give a shit what it is, all the way up to the Supreme Court. When it is backed by the full faith and credit of the United States, it is admissible in all courts, but I'm going to teach you a little trick. You don't actually use the document that you got authenticated. You make a certified copy of the authenticated document because they will keep your authenticated documents, ladies and gentlemen, because they are valuable. Don't make the mistake of submitting them to a court and thinking that you're going to get them back. You will not. Later on, I'll explain to you how you can make a certified copy of the authenticated originals that you received. And without further ado, it is an absolute requisite and a must to keep your fucking receipts on everything you do, because the receipt is evidence of title, okay? Your receipt should have your name on it. You can write on it for whatever you did, If you pay with a card, they're going to have your card information's already going to be on there. Your name's already going to be on there. Keep the fucking receipt. I can't explain to you how important receipts are. Do not discard the receipt, especially if you're going to make a true and accurate certified copy of the authenticated document itself that you wish to utilize in a court of record. All right. Just like step 2, only this time you will be sending your authenticated title to the Department of State. It used to be John Fuckhead Kerry. I don't think he's there anymore. Maybe we've gotten lucky and they whacked his traitorous ass. But more than likely they haven't. But just the same, it's not John Kerry anymore. You're going to have to look it up for your second authentication. For everyone in America, this will go This will get mailed to Office of Authentication, U.S. Department of State, CA PPT STO AUT 44132, Mercury CIR PO Box 1206 Sterling, VA. That's Virginia, 2166 1206. Now, I would really check that, because I don't like using P.O. boxes, all right? I actually use a mail courier. And so we look down in Washington, D.C., we find us a mail courier, and we have a mail courier take it in to the Office of Authentication, U.S. Department of State. It'll typically run you anywhere from $100 to $120 to have them do that for you. The nice thing about that is if you make sure to send them a return envelope, pre-addressed, with stamps on it, they will get that back to you expedited, which is really cool. Used to have a friend that lived down there. He could get this done in as little as 72 hours, which was super badass back in the day. He's no longer currently there, so please do not contact me saying I'd like to use your courier, because I do not have contact with him at this point, and I don't believe that he's located in Washington, D.C. any longer. So with that said, make sure to find your own courier. I would not trust this address. And their website is travelstate.gov. There it is. I'm not going to read it all. I'm losing my voice. Or you can contact the DOS, Department of State, at the phone number 202-485-8000. This does require a request for authentication form to be filled out. You go online, you simply fill out the request for authentication. And it's going to mimic or mirror the same thing that you use for the Secretary of State in the state that you were born in. At the bottom of the form is an empty box. Write this space while you are requesting this authentication. Again, if you want the Great Seal, you must check the box, or write it for travel purposes to a non-Hague Convention member country. Or another example would be for travel purposes to a foreign jurisdiction of Taiwan. Either are acceptable. The Department of State authentication request form can be viewed and edited online at this link here, all right, the eformstate.gov, all right, or printed, okay? And the authentication fee, this was from 2017, ladies and gentlemen, so it may have changed. Inflation, you know, what a bitch. This can also be confirmed by viewing the Department of State website, link above, or calling their office. This fee can be paid by cash, check, or credit card. Again, this information was from 2017. You may want to go review their website and make sure it's still done this way. They have a knack for changing shit as people start to learn it, all right? Note, make sure you include a prepaid big envelope so they can send you back your authenticated title, or you will not get it back. This cannot be stressed fucking enough, all right? Once you get your authenticated title back, proceed to step 4. Having an affidavit to state the facts is an accepted and lawful practice. This is especially necessary if the title you are having authenticated was your certificate of live birth certificate, as per Rule 220, which is out of Minnesota, which you can view here, all right, and this website again may have changed. Simply create an affidavit to the state to state the facts. If you are not sure how to do this, we offer an affidavit template. I'm not giving that affidavit template. I don't even know if this website is still up. Again, you can create your own affidavit. It's really not that hard. You want to make sure that when you do an affidavit that you're doing it under Draught. I like using Title 28, 1746, I believe it is, which is under the pains and penalties, under the laws of the United States of America, all right, under the pains and penalties of perjury. let's just pull it up here real quick so we can make sure that we're doing this right. I think it is Title 28, if my memory serves me right, 1746, maybe. Let's see what happens. Yep, there it is. All right. Memory's still good. A little faded and fatigued from being ill, but just the same. This is something that was really important to me that showed me that there are two different jurisdictions. And if there weren't two different jurisdictions, then why the fuck would they have this, all right? If executed without the United States, I declare, certify, verify, or state. I always just take out the or the parentheses or whatever, and you leave the commas in there. But remember, to declare something, a declaration is to lie by omission. So maybe you want to verify, maybe you just want to state, maybe you just want to certify. It's up to you. Under the penalty of perjury, under the laws of the United States of America. Wow, that's fucking pretty. That the foregoing is true or correct, executed on the date, and then, of course, the signature, all right? Now, here's the other one. Just pay attention. If executed within the United States, the District of Columbia, the federal enclaves and territories, Guam, Samoa, the Sumerian Islands, whatever else they fucking have laid siege to and claim by military occupation, all right? If you want to be defined by that, then this is for you. If executed within the United States, its territories, possessions, or commonwealths, I declare, certify, or verify, state, under the penalty of perjury, that the foregoing is true, correct, executed on such and such date. So again, this is within the United States, Washington, D.C., District of Columbia, and the band of fucking thieves and thugs. Or let's say you have some fucking balls, some cojones, and you understand what the Republic is, and you're all excited about the laws of the United States of fucking America. All right? Choice is yours. That, again, is in Title 28, U.S. Code 1746. All right? So, with that said, let's get back to this. Affidavit of an affiant who states that he or she, your name here, is familiar with the facts recited. The party named in said birth certificate is the same party as one of the owners named in said certificate of title, and that thereafter the registrar of titles shall treat said registered owner as having attained the age of majority at a date 18 years after the date of the birth shown by said certificate as per Rule 220. Rule 220 is out of Minnesota, ladies and gentlemen. Rule 220 goes into a number of different things where when you do your Rule 220 and you're going to do your assumed business name, Rule 220 in Minnesota is the only place where you can drag in a file as you fill out the information for the assumed business name, and that file can be your authenticated birth certificate, which is pretty fucking cool. All right, there's more to that in Rule 220. There's Rule 333. Take note of the 3 3s in there. Ironically, Masonic symbolism and all that horse shit. But Rule 333 in Minnesota also pertains to Rule 220 and may give you some insight on why it may be beneficial after authenticating the birth certificate to do your Rule 220. All right. Note, do not recite Rule 220. Simply state what it tells you to state. All right. Rule 220. Minnesota Rule 220. So again, we don't want to recite their codes or anything, but you can use the verbiage inside their code. This is the .gov site. The Register of Titles is authorized to receive for registration or memorials upon any outstanding certificate of title an official birth certificate pertaining to a registered owner named in said certificate of title showing the date of birth of said registered owner, providing there is attached to said birth certificate an affidavit of an affiant who states that she is familiar with the facts recited, stating that the party named in said birth certificate is the same party as one of the owners named in said certificate of title, and that thereafter the registrar of title shall treat said registered owner as having attained the age of majority at a date 18 years after the date of birth shown on this certificate. Okay, so if we go into here and we go Minnesota Rule 333, and this is all shit I've just had in my head for years and years and years and years. Filing of certificate, Ooh, is that repealed? No. Let's see if it's this one. Filing of certificate, persons conducting or transacting any business under any designated name or style referred to in section 33301 shall, before commencing such business, file such certificate and shall publish the certificate in the manner prescribed in sections 33301. Let's go to 33301. Commercial assumed names, subdivision certificate. No person shall hereafter carry on or conduct or transact a commercial business in this state under any designation, name, or style which does not set forth the true name of every person interested in such business, unless such person shall file in the office of the Secretary of State a certificate setting forth the name and business address under which the business is conducted or transacted, or is to be conducted or transacted, and the true name of each person conducting or transacting the same, with the address of such person. The name of the business must not include any of the following phrases or their abbreviations: corporations, incorporated, limited, chartered, professional, association, cooperative, limited partnership, limited liability company, professional limited liability company, limited liability partnership, or professional limited liability company, limited liability partnership, except to the extent that the entity filing a certificate would be authorized to use the phrase or abbreviation. The certificate shall be executed by one of the persons conducting or intending to conduct the business. The certificate shall be published after it has been filed with the Secretary of State in a qualified newspaper in the county in which the person has a principal or registered office for 2 successive issues. Subsection 2, international misrepresentation prohibited. No person shall use an assumed or fictitious name in the conduct of its business to intentionally misrepresent its geographical origin or location. So in other words, once you follow this step, the courts are no longer allowed to use that name without your express written consent. But it gets better here. Amended certificates, Secretary of State duties and fees, terms of certificates, pleadings, failures to file, penalties for violations. Anyway, if you want to get into that, that's where it's going to take you, okay? We can get into that later, but I believe it is it's just 333, but I don't see it here. That's 333.1.001. I don't just see 333. I'll have to look it up again. Penalties for violations. Let's see what this says. Penalty for violation. A person who violates the provisions of section 333.01 to 333.06 is subject to the penalties and remedies provided in section 8.31. The relief provided in this section is in addition to the remedies and penalties otherwise available. So anyway, that's what that kind of ties into. For everyone else, with any other title, your affidavit should simply state something to the effect of I, last name, comma, first name. Why last name first? Because the last name is your tribe. They came before you did. So your last name, the last name naturally comes first, which is the house of or whatever tribe you're part of. And then you came second, which would be your first and middle name, which is your Christian appellation. And familiar with the facts recited on title, my name is the same party as one of the owners named in said title, short and sweet. You know, you don't have to get fucking brilliant. You don't have to become a fucking internet lawyer or attorney and start using magnificent fucking flamboyant words to stress your point. In fact, that's more damning and dangerous than it is beneficial, all right? So just make it short, sweet, concise, to the motherfucking point. I own this shit, all right? I own it. It's mine, all right? And later on, I'll talk to you guys about license grant deeds, powers of attorney, how to manifest your estate into existence that will be recognized. This affidavit needs to be notarized, all right? When it's notarized, it needs to be made under jurat. Just simply notarizing something doesn't make it so, and a jurat doesn't necessarily make it so either, but a jurat at least will make it admissible as evidence later on if you ever need it to be so, whereas just simply having a notary seal on it is not the same as a jurat. A jurat is done under the pains and penalties of perjury. Then, of course, an affidavit is not a established fact, even if it's unrebutted. An affidavit doesn't stand as true in fact in law until it is one testifies to it or is deposed to the veracity of the facts stated within. At your local notary, which you can usually do at Wells Fargo or another bank for a fee. Make sure to pay the fee, make sure that the notary is using their logbook, and make sure that the notary has a copy of the document that you are having notarized in case you ever have to call them into a court to verify the said document that you utilize. No appointments necessary. Just walk in. You will need to go do a Google search to find a local notary. There's also notaries you can find online now that will travel to you. They're a little more expensive, but they're worth their weight in gold. And I have found that the traveling notaries actually know their fucking shit for the most part. They study, they take it very seriously, and it's a wonderful thing to utilize the services of a mobile notary, okay? They keep records, they are very proficient at what they do, and they know their fucking job. Once you have your affidavit notarized, you then need to have the notary signature authenticated at the state level. Now, in some states, they do the authentication of the notary signature. In other states, there's just a certificate of good standing. So don't let this little nuance here lead you to believe that you're being cheated when the Secretary of State says, hey, we don't authenticate the notary signature. In some states, they do. In other states, they don't. I happen to be in a state where currently they just give you an authenticated, they give you a proof of their good standing, a certificate of good standing for the notary. That's always good to have alonged to your document as evidence that the one that authenticated or witnessed your signature onto the document was in good standing at the time, okay? Just like in step 2, you will need to go to your Secretary of State for your state or mail in the affidavit and handwritten cover letter that states that you would like the notary signature authenticated to show they are in good standing, and the reason why is for travel purposes to a foreign jurisdiction or Taiwan, whatever the case may be. If you want to get the greater seal and not just the lower apostille, which I recommend, remember the lower apostille is just for use within the United States, which would be Washington, D.C. District of Columbia, it's federal enclaves and little fucking occupied possessions, okay, by the military. You don't have to use Taiwan, just any country that is considered outside the Hague Convention. Now, in my studies, and some of my fellow legal scholars do not agree with my assessment, but I will give you my opinion on the subject matter. I'm going to stress the fact that it's just an opinion, but due to my studies, there are countries who have signed the Hague as non-participating members, but nevertheless, they signed onto the Hague Convention. Now, some of my legal scholar friends say, oh, Dirk, it has no bearing. They signed, but they're not participating members, so Canada doesn't count, and you can do it in Canada if you want. I typically have an issue with that. I like countries that haven't signed at all. Other people do it. They do just fine. They still get it authenticated. Great. Hurrah, hurrah, hurrah. But I don't know what the ramifications are, legally speaking, being that they, although they're non-participating members, they are still signing members onto the Hague, okay? I don't know what the ramifications are of that. I just noticed that it is a discrepancy to me, and it's just my opinion. Take that for what it's worth. If you do an amount of research or due diligence on it and you find that there's some validity into me erring on the side of caution with that, stick it in the comments below. I'd love to see your guys' research and what you've come to conclude from that information. And it's not lying if you and your own head plan on making plans to go there, all right? So if you're planning on going there and it doesn't work out, it's not a lie, all right? You can always decide you don't want to go there later, or if you wish, you have the right to change your mind, all right? We are not telling you to lie, just sharing information so you know what you will get if you intend to go to a country outside of the Hague Convention, rather than once inside the Hague Convention, the choice is yours. If you are mailing your affidavit for authentication to the Secretary of State, as before, you will need to include a prepaid big envelope, once again, money order for exact fee, and don't forget to include your cover letter with the reason why you are requesting the authentication, which would be for travel purposes to a foreign jurisdiction, something like Taiwan. Maybe you want to go to fucking Mars. I mean, Elon Musk isn't far from taking us all to fucking Mars. So maybe we can say Dido, 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 Nino, 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 and tell them we want to go to fucking Mars, so authenticate the son of a bitch. I don't know. May work for you, may not. But maybe Martians have already signed on to the Hague and you're fucked. Might want to look into that. Anyway, all jokes aside, foreign jurisdiction of Taiwan, if that is what your plan is, once you have got your authenticated affidavit back from the Secretary of State, proceed to step 5. Step 5, with your double authenticated at the state and federal level, and authenticated affidavit in hand, you are almost ready to go to your local county recorder's office or mail copies to your county recorder's office to be recorded on the public record. The other document you need are listed below. So that's the authentication of the birth certificate. Now we want to do the birth announcement. The birth announcement is where you're going to do an announcement of your offspring being brought into or placed on this earth. Remember, we're not supposed to be of the world. We're supposed to be on earth as a sojourner. We're only here but a day. When they talk in the Bible, biblically speaking, the earth was made in 7 days, but for every 1 day on earth was 1,000 years in heaven, right? So when we look at that, I'm only here for but a day. I'm just a sojourner. I'm here for less than a day, considering my lifespan won't exceed probably more than 60 years. So with that said, I'm here for less than a day. I'm just a sojourner. I'm not part of any of this mucky muck or horse shit. But while I'm here, I seek to ascend of the mind and learn things and utilize things to benefit others of mankind for a purpose greater than myself. So full list: authenticated birth certificate and authenticated certificate of live birth, affidavit per Rule 220. Okay, Rule 220 also leads into the assumed business name. You're not going to do the assumed business name until you have the authenticated birth certificate. Why? Because when you do the assumed business name, you can tie the assumed business name to the birth certificate. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you right now, as soon as you do the assumed business name, you now have the evidence you need to trademark and copyright the name, which means if anybody's using it and they breach the USPTO, they're fucked. Checkmate. You can hit them for fucking $100,000 for copyright infringement, trademark violation. Yes, this is how you actually trademark and copyright the doing business as name. You can go on to Vistaprint, print yourself one of those fucking business cards that says Derek Chaton Gonzalez, and turn around and send them a copy of the business card to the USPTO, send them the DBA from Minnesota, send them the evidence that you're all established, and they will turn around and allow you to trademark and copyright that business name, okay? Because that's what it is. It's just an entity to do business. It's a person to do business with, and now you can protect your asset. All right, it is an asset. All caps name as it appears on your birth certificate, first, middle, and last. And this can only be done through the Minnesota Secretary of State website. That is a fucking fact. If you mail this in trying to do it, they will deny you. You have to get online and do it. And there are a number of positions you can hold when you do this. You could be the grantor, you can be the settler, you could be the trustee, you could be the beneficiary, you could be anything you want to be in the land of fucking Honolulu, all right? So I would encourage you to study trust law before you do your DBA so you can understand the proper titles and the benefits that you will have. Maybe you're a custodian of the record. Maybe you're the secretary for that assumed business name. Maybe you're a guardian for that DBA. There's a number of titles you can go with. So do your own research and your own due diligence. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I will tell you when I did my DBA, I loaded that motherfucker for bear. There are so many positions on there. There are so many titles, if you will, and I can operate every fucking last one of them. And when I put new titles on there, I rearranged the name. For example, Gonzalez, Derek Chaton was the trustee. Derek Chaton Gonzalez was the beneficiary. Master Gonzalez, Derek Chaton is the trust protector, whatever you want to do. There's just a number of ways that you do that when you do your DBA. This may not be necessary, but I recommend you taking no chances and fill out a UCC1 financing statement. Check the box on this form for non-UCC, showing this will be a non-UCC financing statement, and in the box where you list your collateral, this is where you list you and your offspring social security number. Now, I'll tell you this right now, when you do whether it's a UCC1 or UCC, non-UCC filing, you can't use the whole number, all right? That number is supposed to be secret. You're not supposed to be publishing that in public, all right? So it'll be XXX, XXX, maybe one or two numbers on there. Do not be dumb like I once was and put the whole fucking number on there. Don't do it. It's stupid. It's retarded. But if an issue should ever arise, guess what? You got the documents and you got the whole fucking number. You're the only one with the whole number. And this matter must be sealed because the information that's going to be released pertains to a trust. And I can't rightfully breach the trust indenture by airing these private matters in public. All right, birth record number, which is on your birth certificate or certificate of live birth. Again, you're not going to publish the whole number on a non-UCC, and a non-UCC doesn't rightfully ever get recorded in the public anyway. That is something that happens in private, in camera, in chambers, if an issue arises. Certificate of live birth to show this is your private property. Again, we get rid of the adjective of private, and we just stick with property, which is the proper noun, which everybody is entitled to. It's an intangible right. That intangible right is property, okay? It could be tangible, I guess, but for all intents and purposes, it's tangible or intangible. Once you have those four documents together, now you're ready to have your record at the county recorder's office. Show your local recorder's office, state that you do not need to have your title on the public record or refuse to let you record your document out of their own ignorance. Simply mail copies of your documents to the county recorder in another county. It doesn't matter where you record them. All that matters is that they are recorded. This will ensure your interest in your private property, your title, has been lawfully perfected, and you have become the holder in due course. All right? The simple act of holding this double authenticated title in your hands makes your interest in your title perfect. It means that you can now argue through title lawfully. However, it is always a good practice to have it recorded on the public record at your local county recorder's office to have absolute proof that you are the title owner and holder in due course, which you can then take that to the recording number and write it down on an affidavit and enter that affidavit containing your recording number into your CPS case. You should have your kids back in 2 weeks or less after you do this, most likely with an apology. And if they try to keep your kids after this, you can sue the ever-living shit out of them, bring forward a claim, not a complaint. You can get paid a fat check for their several violations against you, like tort of trespass for trespassing against your rights. And it's a trespass against your rights. It remains a trespass until remedy is had. It would be theft by way of taking your property being your offspring, damaging your property, okay, which again would be your offspring, severe emotional distress, kidnapping. Kidnapping and trafficking are both legal terms. All right, it's theft by taking your property, okay, violating their oath of office, which CPS doesn't have an oath of office. Ladies and gentlemen, they're a private for-profit corporation operating under a 501c3, which is purportedly a nonprofit organization, yet they're getting federal grant monies from the federal government to engage in human trafficking. It's a big RICO racketeering fucking scheme, all right? Scheme. They're fucking thieves, all right? And I've been in the den of thieves for a long motherfucking time, and I know a thief when I see a motherfucking thief. And they are fucking low-life, pandering piles of thieving, looting, pandering pieces of shit. Bingo. Point blank and motherfucking simple, all right? So violating their oath is just a joke. That would apply to the attorney general, the governor, the sheriff who facilitates and assists them in kidnapping your offspring or taking your property without just cause, violating due process of law. The violations add up to the tens of millions. If you decide to get a lawyer, only use a private attorney. I don't even know if that's true. It's best just to become learned on your own. A normal attorney does not have the power to advise you on how to proceed against the state in a claim. Why? Because the attorneys are all in cahoots with this RICO racketeering scheme. They're nothing more than fucking thugs, all right? If you are going if you are doing this with your certificate of live birth certificate, once you have the double authenticated title in hand in your physical possession, this very act perfects the interest in your title and makes you the holder in due course, thus changing your status to private real party of interest and do not detain. That's all debatable, but it does give you proper standing. Now you have an authenticated document with the full faith and credit of the United States, which serves as legal evidence, and you're now arguing through title and not against title, okay? So with that said, I hope this helps you out. Should you ever have to go to court for anything, you can now enter as the highest status, which is private. Real party of interest, that's legally speaking, all right? The real party of interest shit is legal talk. It's legal jargon. Private, no doubt, but real party of interest, that's all on the administrative side. You now have standing and don't need a lawyer to speak for you in any court in the world. Now, I will say this. Once you have your power of attorney, hold harmless indemnity agreement put in place, you also have a, what's the other word I'm looking for? It's eluding me at this time. It'll come back to me. You now have standing and don't need a lawyer to speak on your behalf. Do not take your original authenticated titles to the county recorder, or they will try to pull the pages apart to scan and record them, thus destroying them. Remember, once that round ring and rivet has been put together to hold the paper together, if it's tampered with in any way, shape, or form, it's invalid. All right? Pay attention to that. If the pages are taken apart, this will void your title. What we did when we did ours is we scanned them in. We had a notary certify that they were true, original, authentic copies. We scanned them in, and then we used Rule 220, and we sent it all in that way. That's how we did ours. You don't have to follow suit. We found it very easy to do it that way. If you have a scanner, simply fold the pages back and scan each page, and then print out the copies and take the copies to the recorder to be recorded. If you do not have a scanner, you can go to your local Office Max or Kinko's. Be sure not to tear the motherfucking rivet, all right? And take your receipt with you. The receipt is proof of title. It's evidence that they are yours, okay? If they pull the pages apart and void your title, it's not the end of the world, but you will have to do the whole process over again, and you are only allowed I think 7 certified copies of your title in a lifetime, which isn't fucking true. In Arizona, you can get as many as you want. You make 500 of them a fucking day. So anyway, some states are different. You can only get 10 of them a year, 10 birth certificates a year. In other states, you can get as many as you fucking want. As far as authentication, as long as the paper keeps flowing, they don't give a shit. They'll authenticate thousands of them for you a year. For those of you who are authenticating your certificate of live birth or certificate, proceed to the next step. Now you are ready to send your notice of mistake to the Vital Records Office, Vital Records, in the state of your birth. This will put them on notice that you are now age of majority and your birth certificate is no longer outstanding. You will need to do a Google search to find out where your birth state Vital Records Office can be located. Most times it's located with the Secretary of State's office. It's located with the Vital Records Office. Okay, so the Vital Records, the head of the Vital Records has like 7 different hats. They're kind of like the postmaster of the United States Postal Service. He or she wears 7 or 8 different hats, from General Post, the United States Post Office, the United States Postal Service. Same thing with Vital Records. The head of Vital Records wears a number of hats, from the state register to the head manager of Vital Records or Vital Statistics, so on and so forth. So most times check with your Vital Records office, and you'll find the head person there wears multiple hats. Send your notice of mistake to the appropriate address of Vital Statistics, and send it registered mail only. Registered mail, why? Because we want proof of chain of title, okay? Proof of chain of evidence. Put an extra stamp on the envelope, and when the post office asks the postmaster to BOP stamp, cancel out the extra postage, so the extra postage is not meter canceled, all right? That's important. You always want the round BOP postage canceled by the postmaster or whoever's receiving that article of mail, because it gives the date, the time, and the location, and the fact that we're using, quote-unquote, the Tax Stamp Act and actually sending something of value through the mail using real stamps of value, all right? This will ensure your mail is sent private and not domestic, so as to not enter into domestic jurisdiction and make the Postmaster General a witness to the document. You will need to send a notice of mistake once a month for 3 months in order to give them a chance to rebut your claim. We have never heard of a case where this notice was challenged. However, to complete the administrative law process, you must send them notice. All right, everything's about notice and opportunity, due process of law. Let them know, hey, we believe you made a mistake. If you haven't made a mistake, there's no need to respond. If you don't respond to this, then it will be admitted that there was a mistake, and our record shall supersede any record that you may have. Once a month for 3 months, and give them the opportunity to rebut, challenge, or claim. Remember, you're making a claim. Once this time period has passed, your claim is cured into law and stands as law. After 3 months from this time period, you should be able to see that you have achieved your desired solution to your specific problem. If you have any further questions regarding this process, please email us at our contact page. We get lots of questions and reply. I don't even know if these people are still up and running, but I do know this information is pertinent, okay? So for those of you that want to see that, there you go. Simply pause the video later at a later date and time, maybe log the date and time that this is being shared so you can fast forward and you can get to that specific part. All right. In order to get your kids back from CPS, you must realize what it is that gave them authority and jurisdiction over your kids to start with. What was the first document created for your child when it was born? When your kids were born, you registered them, all right? Registration is a legal process by which you hand over ownership of the item and retain only the right to hold onto the item. Take care of it, but you give up the ownership right. Then you were given a receipt for this registration that is called the Certificate of Live Birth or Birth Certificate. In order to get your kids back from CPS, you must take back the ownership of them. Everything in a court is viewed as property, and if you don't have the title to it, someone else does. All right, remember, possession is 9/10 of the law, but the most important 10th that nobody ever talks about is fucking title. In this case, you registered your kids with the state and the United States without going into much detail. If you want your kids back, you need to get a hold of your original certificate, which you'll never get the original certificate, so don't even fucking try. Get the certificate from Vital Records, and then authenticate it state and federal, which means that you're adopting the record. And now you can argue through title having proper standing to do so of live birth or birth certificate. However, in most states, it's illegal for Vital Records to give you that original document. That's because Vital Records doesn't have the original document, ladies and gentlemen. They sent that off to Washington, D.C. They hold the original bond. They don't want to hand over ownership of their property, as you can imagine. So, in order to get around this, you must get a copy of the Certificate of Live Birth. We prefer that you get the long form, if you can still get it. In Minnesota, they give you a bunch of riffraff about getting the long form. But if you're persistent, they will eventually give you the abstract filing. If that is not possible, a birth certificate will work for this process. So get a certified copy, have it authenticated at the state and federal level as outlined and on the previous page. Once that comes back to you from Secretary of State, John Kerry, which is no longer there, he's a traitorous rat bastard, but needless to say, moving on, it's game over. Checkmate. You now hold the genuine article which usurps any original. You have just become the holder in due course and the registered owner. Only one of 3 people can hold a genuine article, the mom, dad, or the child, when he or she reaches the age of 18. At the lower left corner of the page of the authentication page from the dipshit, which was formerly John Kerry, but it's actually the Secretary of State for the United States, you will see a few statutes listed. If you look them up, it reveals the process you just completed and shows that you have done what is lawfully necessary to become the holder in due course of and owner of that title. When you show up to the court with the title, genuine article, which you now hold, will show the court that they no longer hold onto any title over your offspring, as you are there in court and the title in your hands, not theirs. They have no option but to hand over ownership of the property, your offspring, as you hold the title to them. They must be returned to you. However, before you can own anything, including your own kids, you must own your own title. Until you have done this process for yourself so you can own your own title, you can't own anything and you have no standing in court.
You must do this process for yourself first. The second your authenticated title comes back from the Secretary of State of the United States and is in your hands, you have become the holder in due course of your title. No longer a slave, but by silent consent. You are now in the private sector with the highest status, private woman or man, and now have standing and real experience in court. Don't walk into court a beggar. Own your title, argue through title, and walk as a king. Please watch the list of videos listed below, available on YouTube for further clarity. The court will test you, so you must know this, be familiar with this information. If you love your offspring and want them back, then you will do this. You will review this information and master it. Many others have already gone through this process and gotten their offspring back. You are not the first, but one thing you will learn is that public and private do not mix. You will never hear about these private strategies for private man or woman on public TV, news, mainstream media, etc. Private knowledge is kept out of the public. This information is private and confidential for members only. If you are not a private member, if this information was not intended for you, then delete it. Once you have done this process for yourself and your offspring, and hold the genuine articles of title authenticated in your hands, make copies at your local office store. Remember to make copies of your receipts as well to prove that you acquired this and paid for it, gave value and consideration. Do not let anyone pull the pages of the authentication apart, or it is void. Have the copies entered into the court case and take copies to your court hearing and demand CPS get back you your property. You must not use a lawyer in a court, as only citizens or others with a like status who can't speak for themselves need lawyers. Once you are private, you can speak for yourself. You don't need and cannot use a lawyer. Only you can do this for your offspring. If you walk into a court with a lawyer, you just handed over your private status and told the court, I am under your authority and jurisdiction, do whatever you want to me and my offspring. You must stand on your own. You have lawful standing now in court, so stand up, get off your knees, and tell these motherfucking scallywags to give you back your property before you rain down fucking the heaven and the earth on their heads. You are going to order them to give back your property, of which you hold the supreme superior title.
To learn more about this information, contact us at glgse7en@gmail. Free yourself today.
We're excited to provide you with access to the most up-to-date technology and research that have successfully helped numerous individuals in the past. We're confident that they can do the same for you. Please don't hesitate to contact us if you have any questions or concerns. We highly recommend reviewing our information packet, which contains cutting-edge and proven knowledge. We believe that access to this information is important for everyone, and we encourage you to share it with your friends and family.